Hey everyone, Aussie Viking to do another video. So today, I finished God of War for the PlayStation 4. And I have to say, this is the best God of War game ever. I've played all the other God of War games, and I love 1, 2, and 3, and I love the spin-offs they did. But this right here takes everything that God of War has and puts it on its head and makes it brilliant. So first up, it does give Kratos a more human look. Now, if you've played the other games, including like the PSP games and stuff, there were moments in the stories where we got a more human look at Kratos, but he still managed to become a massive wanker about it in the end. But there were moments that he had a heart. This one basically takes that, but he learns. You know, every time he has an asshole moment, a little bit later he'll have a moment where you're like, oh god, he actually learned from that. He'll be like an asshole one minute, a good guy the next, and then throughout the game, by the end of it, why he's still a hard ass, he has a soul now. It feels like he's got a soul. His heart's opened up, and he is a different person. He's completely different, like he was in episode God of War 1. And in this God of War, he's completely different in certain ways. Now, one thing I think a lot of people are asking is, does this feel like a God of War game? Absolutely. Sure, the camera's changed and the gameplay's changed, but there's still epic boss fights. You're still in a mythical world, and there's still a lot of gore and fighting and killing and such like that. That's all there, and there are literally some boss fights in this that feel like they're the best in the series. Maybe not as crazy as the Titans sequences in maybe 1 or 2 in this game are on par with the Titan sequences. I'm not gonna say what though, but it's good. Next up, the story. So a lot of people are saying stuff like, this is The Last of Us 2.3 or whatever, you know, the God of War of us, you know. Sort of. So this game does have that element of great characters and just an overall story, you know. This isn't a crazy story about everybody coming together having to kill Kratos. No. The story is basically, mother's died, they take her ashes to the highest peak of the realms. That's the story. Of course, a lot of fucked up shit happens in the way, and then it gets more complex, but overall, the story is quite easy. The biggest thing is the characters. Now, the good thing is, it's done a lot better. I like The Last of Us, but this feels like it took everything The Last of Us had and makes it infinitely better. So, in this one, instead of... Look at Ellie from Last of Us. The most she could do is maybe shoot a few things and then grab a brick and chuck it at people when during stealth. In this one, Atreus can jump, kill, stab, shoot, and help you with the puzzles in this game. He's a valuable asset to upgrade and even has as a character. You know, he grows, he learns, and by the end of this game, you're like, my god, I cannot wait to see what goes next. And on that, this game definitely feels like part 1 in a trilogy, you know. It's very good. The downside is, by the end of the game, especially when you get that secret ending, there's a lot of questions unanswered. There's actually a lot of questions unanswered from the original trilogy that you thought would be answered in this one that aren't actually answered because it still brings up stuff that she thinks should have been answered, but it isn't. So there's stuff brought up in this that you kind of like, shit, like, I want a sequel already, because there's some good stuff here. Now, whether or not we get that in an expansion pack or most likely a sequel remains to be seen, but it definitely leaves you with questions. Probably more questions that you had when you start, you know, there's more questions by the end of the game than you had at the start of the game. Because at the start of the game, while you have a lot of questions, they are actually answered. But then around halfway, that you start getting more questions, and you're like, okay. One of them might get answered, and you're like, what about the other 10 I had? You know, there's a lot of things that I think is going to happen with this. And if Cory Barlog, who created God of War 2, comes into this again for a second and third game, and they have a right amount of development time, I really think we're going to get some crazy shit. Like, I've already got theories in my head that makes me go, wow, I kind of wonder if they'll go that way. Because there are kind of references to time travel and just some crazy ass stuff. And if you're a lore fan of the Norse mythology, there's stuff there too. On that though, if you come into this game wanting to get a very 100% interpretation of Norse mythology, don't. I'm a big Norse mythology fan, and I know there's different like levels. There's the Germanic side, and then there's the other side. And stuff like that. And they did that with the original trilogy too. So look at it like this. In the original trilogy, they had the Greek and the Roman side of things. So in Greek, I think it was Hercules, and in Roman, it was Heracles, right? So what they did in the original series is they basically took those two characters and whacked them together and kind of formed it all around them. And they do it in this one too, and it does deconstruct the mythologies of gods. So there are legends being said, and it's like, oh no, this isn't. The legends are wrong. This is how it happened. So it's like this is what you think happened, but it's not what happened in the whole mythology things, because there are stories that are told by a certain lore master in this game from this book here, and they actually are different. Like they're very similar in tone, but the ending is completely different to what it actually is in, say, that book, which is based around the prose edda in this one. Now they did use the prose edda to learn and stuff like that, but they do take artistic liberties with what's going on because Kratos never existed when that was written and stuff like that. So they do take their own liberties, and some of the liberties I'm a bit iffy on. I kind of like, well, that kind of goes against certain aspects, although said character is flawed because the Norse gods were very flawed characters, but in here they kind of come off at times like wankers, more so. But then again, there's also a theme in this game where they also say stuff like, we don't know the whole story. We only have one part of the story compared to the whole thing. So it's quite possible in a sequel or even in a threequel, we will actually get a more consistent viewpoint of these characters, because maybe it's like, oh, this character's an asshole because he has this sort of mentality, but then later on you find out why he has that mentality, you know. The great thing is it doesn't feel like, by the end of this game, it doesn't feel like Kratos is the original Kratos, you know. He's not going to kill all the Norse gods because he wants to kill them. No, by the end of the game, he actually is a changed person. Not to say the idea of all the Norse gods dying is impossible, because if you know anything about Norse mythology, there is still Ragnarok. Now, in the prose edda and stuff, when Ragnarok befell everyone, there were some gods that survived, similar to how in the God of War, the original God of War games, some of the Greek gods are still alive because they weren't all killed off. And that's not a spoiler for this game at all. If you go back and read play the first 3 games, you'll notice that there are gods that were not killed. That were like, I think Artemis was one that was never killed, and there's a few others. So they're not all dead. Not all the Greek gods are dead, and that's just from like the original games. But there's nothing about that in this game. But overall, this is a great game. The biggest thing to describe this game in terms of gameplay and stuff is, think of it like Legend of Zelda. Not like Breath of the Wild open world level, but like Ocarina of Time, where it's got small open areas. You go through the game, you unlock stuff, you go back, and we can reopen areas that you couldn't get to later on and stuff. There's big epic battles. There's a great RPG system, great fight system too. That reminds me of Dark Souls and Bloodborne, and it's very well done. It is extremely well done. Probably some of the most fun fighting I've ever had. On that, if you play this game, do the side quests, because there are side quests. You get a lot of XP, which you can use to level up Kratos and even his son, whose name escapes me, unfortunately. So it all comes together, and it's like, yeah. And I think that's the best thing about it. This does feel like a fun game. It's long. It's like 30 plus hours. I think I played like 20 hours, maybe 25, and I've still got ways to go in terms of like unlockables and secrets and stuff like that. I can say this isn't a spoiler at all, but when you finish the game, you can still play the game and go into the land that's kind of open worldish, and finish quests off, go through these legendary areas and stuff like that, and basically get 100% of the game. So that's cool. I like that. But yeah, overall, this is a great game. It's got everything for everyone. If you're a story-driven person, you get this. But if you want a more gameplay, open-ended game, it's got that too. It's the best of both worlds. And honestly, if this helps us get more Norse-related games in the future, I'm happy and up there for it, because it's amazing. So overall, this is a 10 out of 10. Like, I can't believe I'm actually agreeing with IGN here, but yeah, it's a 10 out of 10. It's fantastic. Is it one of the greatest games ever made? Yeah, I think I can put it up there. I think I can actually put it up there. Probably put it up there more so than Last of Us. As much as I like The Last of Us, this feels like a more coherent game, a more bigger game, and a more game, you know. The moments, you know, when you play this game, if there's a story, if you go for the main story, you know that there's going to be a moment where camera gets taken away and stuff like that. But you still have the side quests which don't do that. You can still play and do all this. And even in the main campaign, it's not as prominent as, say, something like The Last of Us. So this game is a great interpretation, at least until we see what happens in number 2, a God of War 2, or God of War 3, or God of War Part 2, or Part 3 to 2018 God of War. It's going to be weird how they're going to actually do a second and third game, but it does feel like there will be. And as much as I could gush about this game, I gotta stop talking. But yeah, this game is fantastic. And definitely the only downside I think I have is there are moments when you're doing puzzles and there's a bit too much fighting. I kind of feel like that's one thing that God of War still does. Even though, although to be honest, the fighting system is so good in this game that I didn't care. Didn't really feel as annoying as it usually does in the older games or any other game. But other than that, and some iffiness in terms of lore and creativity, which I can accept because this is their own version of the Norse gods and stuff. But there's also the antics of this. It feels like there's more story to come. So yeah, great game, great gameplay, great story and characters. It's a game that I think needs to be played. So go for it. Anyway, Aussie Viking out. So see you in Valhalla. Bye.